Ooh, it's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been a long time since I've been on this microphone, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you can tell, but I am excited to be back into the fray here to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, ladies and gentlemen. It's been such a long time. I was sick not too long ago. I wasn't feeling super well, which is why I took a little bit of a hiatus. And also, the news cycle has been pretty low, right? Yeah, the schedule released, Dallas Goedert got re-signed, and that's about it in all of Philadelphia Eagles land, right? However, this is also a time of season where, people start to speculate and people start to reflect a little bit. And I was kind of pondering some stuff, and I'm curious to see what other people believe here because I've listened to other channels about, who are Philadelphia Eagle fans, and I've listened to a lot of other pundits out there who talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think a lot of question marks are out there regarding this team, whether or not they can get out there and be successful like they were in 24, winning the Super Bowl. But two of the question marks that they really have are in regards to head coach Nick Sirianni and quarterback Jalen Hurts, who, again, Super Bowl MVP, Nick Sirianni, 70% winning percentage, has a Super Bowl title on his resume in 2 of his first 4 years as head coach, gotten this team to a Super Bowl and had them play some of their best games all year. I think Eagle fans in general don't have a lot of questions. I think your generic fan doesn't have a lot of questions in regards to Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. However, I think a lot of deeper fans are really trying to figure out the pulse of this team, and they're trying to figure out whether or not Nick Sirianni, what his title is he actually an elite coach, right? Like, what exactly does he do on a day-to-day basis for this team? And then Jalen Hurts, what's his status amongst the top quarterbacks in the NFL? I believe he's the top 5. We talked about this in a previous episode in the past, but I hear a lot of people talk about saying, hey, he doesn't have elite arm talent, which he doesn't. He doesn't have elite footwork. He doesn't have great pocket presence. He has the best offensive line. He has the best wide receiver duo in the National Football League. He's got the best running game in the National Football League as well. He's supposed to win. He's supposed to do all these things, and yet he hasn't thrown for 20. He hasn't thrown for 25 plus touchdowns in the season. He hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards in the season. Yeah, he's going to win football games because his roster is stacked. Nick Sirianni is going to win a lot of games because his roster is stacked. And when we're talking about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and a lot of the discussion around them, the polarizing nature of those two guys leads us to this discussion of whether or not they actually have something to prove this upcoming season, despite winning the Super Bowl just last year. Some Eagle fans may even question whether or not Nick Sirianni is a good coach, right? We don't know exactly what he does other than manage the whole operation in terms of making sure the Eagles are not the Eagles, the egos on the team are kept in check on game day. But in terms of what goes on in the offseason and practice and all, he delegates that to veteran coaches like Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore last year, and what Howie Roseman does to get acquisitions on this roster, right? And then in Jalen Hurts' case, doesn't have elite numbers. All he does is win, though. Everywhere he's gone in his career, he wins football games. Is that enough to constitute as an elite quarterback? Because a lot of people will say that, hey, you could plug in Justin Herbert, you could plug in Tua, you could plug in C.J. Stroud, you could plug in Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford. You can plug all those guys into the position that Jalen Hurts is in right now, and they'll go out there and win a Super Bowl. That's the question about this team. That's the question of whether or not Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni still have something to prove despite their success. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, it's been a long time since I've introduced the show. For those of you who don't know, this is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast, and I'm your host, Asif Badi, and like you, I'm a Birds fan who talks about the Birds, only the Birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. So please do us a favor here, help us grow this channel organically, and be part of this discussion by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel, because it helps me get out to as many other Eagle fans out there as much as possible on the World Wide Web. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a 5-star review, because in the end, it doesn't cost you a damn thing. And let me tell you something. Free stuff is good. No matter how you slice it, free stuff, unless it's an ass whooping, is pretty damn good. And we don't want any of that sort of nonsense over here. So please do us a favor, support the channel. We thank you for your support on the opposite side of the camera and opposite side of the radio if you're listening to us on audio platforms. We don't want to forget about you guys. Let's talk about Nick Sirianni first, because I know people find him to be the most antagonizing, annoying, just typical Philly. Like, he's exactly what you would picture as an Eagle fan. Just like somebody who looks, like a press. Like, I'm saying I'm not trying to disrespect Nick Sirianni, and I'm gonna roast the guy, unfortunately. But I'm not trying to disrespect the man. I'm saying this is what other people believe when they look at. Because when you look at Sirianni, you don't necessarily view him in the lights of a Mike Tomlin, Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, rather like your elite coaches in the league. They don't view them, or they don't view Sirianni as a guy who has that sort of stature, right? They view him as a clown show, yelling at the fans, shaving his head one week, blundering press conferences, right? That's what they believe he is. Kind of like yours truly here. Blundering on the microphone, bald, screams all the time, uses his hands. You can't tell whether or not he knows or doesn't know football, right? I digress. Point being is Sirianni's a polarizing figure. The problem is he's won every year. Every year the man has been a coach, he's gotten this team to the playoffs. 2 of the first 4 years of our careers with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, we've seen a Super Bowl appearance and 1 Super Bowl title. His 4 years have been arguably the greatest stretch in franchise history. Now, whether or not you want to contribute that to the quarterback, the coach, Howie Roseman, all the above. Fact of the matter is, that's the track record. But he's also due for a contract extension, and I think the organization, we've talked about this in the past episode, the organization, I don't know how they view the position of head coach. How much do they actually value head coach for the National Football League and for this Philadelphia Eagles team? Do they believe that they're saying, hey, we could plug in anybody here at head coach, as long as they follow suit with our program, with the way that we want to do business, they're going to win football games? Andy Reid turned into Chip Kelly, and say what you want about Chip Kelly, he did win 10 games his first 2 years each as head coach of this football team. Doug Peterson brought him in after Chip Kelly, and we won a Super Bowl, our first one in franchise history with him. Got rid of his ass quick, fast, and in a hurry, and now Sirianni. And literally all of last season, the thing that every Eagle fan and everybody in Philly wanted Sirianni to do, not get in the damn way. Just let the operation operate as is. Don't try to implement nothing. Don't try to change anything. Just be the guy that lets it run and don't sink the ship. Right? That was what we wanted Sirianni to do. And it ended up turning into a Super Bowl championship. But now he's going for a contract extension, and the question is he worth the money for an elite head coach? I believe he is, but let's take a look at some of the stuff that we got going on in terms of head coaching prices here, okay? Andy Reid's got a $20 million value as head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, followed by Peyton at 18, Tomlin at 16 with Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, that is, in the Chargers. And then McVay is a $15 million head coach with Sirianni, John Harbaugh, Dan Campbell, McDermott, Mac McDonald, right? I would presume, based on his resume, you look at Nick Sirianni's record and you say, okay, he's done more winning than McDonald, McDermott, Campbell, Kyle, and at this point, Jim Harbaugh in his career, right? In terms of capturing Super Bowl titles and stuff. And again, Jim Harbaugh is an excellent coach. I do believe he's a quality head coach. But in terms of resume, he's got a Super Bowl title, yanks all those other guys out. And then of the Super Bowl winning head coaches, and John Harbaugh, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, Harbaugh, Tomlin, Payton, it's been a long time since we've seen you win a Super Bowl, so let's get them out of the equation. So now the question is, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Nick Sirianni. Is he quite Andy Reid? No. I don't think he's worth $20 million. I also for damn sure don't believe that, he should get paid, less than Sean McVay. As excellent of a coach as I believe Sean McVay is, Nick Sirianni deserves more money than that. I think he deserves more money than Sean Payton, so he should get paid $19 million. But will the Philadelphia Eagles go out there and pay this man $19 million? It's a lot of money for a head coach. And if they don't, what does that say in their belief about Nick Sirianni? Do they believe they can just plug any guy into the building and win football games? I think my gut feeling is that they actually believe that. I think they genuinely believe as long as they do exactly what we want them to do, they're going to win games. They're going to win games no matter who's the head coach. Which now brings me to my point of whether or not Sirianni has anything to prove. And the answer to me is no. Sirianni is the perfect head coach for this organization, whether they like it or not. He is going to do exactly what they want him to do. Exactly, to a T. To the point where you have to ask yourself, like, hey, even if, let's say, he doesn't have any sort of implement on this team and the product on Sunday, let's just say he's just a figurehead. For the Philadelphia Eagles, isn't it worth paying him $18-19 million to just not rock the ship and let the GM and head coach and the owner just do what they do? I don't know if you're going to get a coach in the building that's just going to let you, do as they say. They're going to want to implement their own style, their own culture, because that's what a head coach does. But Sirianni knows the game. He's not going to go out there and do that. And he's been playing ball, and he's due for money. And Philadelphia Eagles, who out there are you going to bring in that's just going to listen to every single thing you say and it result in a Super Bowl title? Not a lot of guys out there that you could say that for. I think Sirianni has nothing to prove. I think he's going to go out there and win a lot of football games once again. And quite frankly, the conversation around Sirianni has flipped, in my opinion, for me. I used to think he was a good-for-nothing guy who was just emotional on the sideline. And in years, I used to look at him and say, hey, he was integral in developing our quarterbacks and implementing a culture here. But perhaps that's not the case at all. Perhaps he's just the guy that manages the game super well on Sunday, keeps Eagles in check, and makes sure not to rock the boat. That's worth it. That is worth keeping a guy like that if that's what you genuinely believe about Nick Sirianni. I think the organization believes that's what he is. It's just a matter of how much money they're willing to put on the contract. I think you have to pay him $18 to $19 million, but that's just me. Which now transitions to the quarterback, who's probably the more polarizing figure in terms of what fans believe he actually has to prove. Is Jalen Hurts an elite quarterback? Can he throw for 4,000 yards? Can he throw for 30-plus touchdowns? Without the tush push, will this organization and this team be as successful? All of these questions are surrounded by the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. It's late at night. Jalen Hurts to me, is a top 5 quarterback, bar none. To me, he's a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. I don't think there's any quarterback outside of the Elite Four in Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson that you would put above him quick, like with assurance. The only one that maybe has a comparable point are Matt Stafford and Jaden Daniels, maybe. But even then. And when you stack up Jalen Hurts' record against some of the other quarterbacks that people believe are better than him, doesn't necessarily look so pretty here, okay? Look, Jalen Hurts is 16-8 in these matchups against quarterbacks in the National Football League. Dak Prescott, he's 1-2. He's only played in 3 games with him. One of them was when he was a rookie. And then the other 2 have been injured years every other game that they've been injured against one another. But everyone believes that Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott in terms of postseason success because one's 6-3, the other is 2-5 in their careers, respectively. Not much of a conversation there, in my opinion. Patrick Mahomes, he's got a 500 record against him, 1-1 in the playoffs in the Super Bowl, in both our Super Bowl games. You could argue he's outplayed and outdueled Patrick Mahomes in both games, throwing and running the football. So I don't want to hear necessarily that, oh, he can't show up on the big stage, because that is exactly what he does. The bigger the moment, the bigger the play Jalen Hurts makes. Baker Mayfield, the Muffin Man, one of my favorite quarterbacks in the National Football League. He doesn't have a good record against him. But again, we play him again this year in the regular season, so maybe we can right the ship there, and we'll talk about the schedule in just a moment. Bo Nix, we're seeing him again in the regular season. We're probably going to beat the Broncos. Russell Wilson, I don't think it's much of a conversation between Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson at this point. McCarthy, we are not even going to bother. He's undefeated against Jordan Love. He's got a 2-1 record against Jared Goff. And against Justin Herbert, he's beaten him once, right? Josh Allen, he's beaten, and Jaden Daniels, he's beaten. I mean, all the quarterbacks that you could possibly look at and say are probably better than Jalen Hurts, at least according to the haters and fans out there. He's got a winning record against all of them. There's no discussion on whether or not you put them head to head who comes up victorious. It's Jalen Hurts. Yeah, you want to look at the team? Sure, go right ahead. But name me a quarterback that doesn't have a good team around him that's winning a lot of football games. Tom Brady had a top 10 defense throughout the entirety of his career. He had the greatest head coach of all time and one of the greatest offensive coordinators in Josh McDaniels every Super Bowl appearance, outside of the one in Tampa Bay. Patrick Mahomes has the Kansas City Chiefs, Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill he had. Don't tell me that these guys didn't have talented players around them. Now, I know Jalen Hurts is spoiled with riches and talent. Absolutely. But that's not an indictment on the quarterback. That's a testament to the organization and the way that they manipulate the cap and the way they accumulate talent. And really, a lot of what stems from this conversation is jealousy in regards to why Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. Yeah, you can't look at something like, oh, he doesn't have the biggest arm. He doesn't have the most accurate touch on the ball. He doesn't necessarily, will his team to victory in terms of operating from the pocket and, taking a bunch of nobodies to victory. No. Only a few guys in the history of the NFL have done that. Okay? What he does have, though, elite clutchness. What he does have is the innate ability to extend plays, to use his leg, and be probably, arguably, the only dual threat quarterback outside of Mahomes that has won a Super Bowl and that has played well in Super Bowls. Can't say that about Josh. Can't say that about Lamar. You're not going to say that about Joe Burrow. You can't necessarily say that about Jaden Daniels just yet. Jordan Love, don't get me started. Kyler Murray, don't get me started. Dak Prescott, don't get me started. Justin Herbert, as much as I love him, don't get me started. There's no quarterback. Brock Purdy, good quarterback. Don't get me started. There's nothing that you could say Jalen Hurts has done in the NFL that other quarterbacks also have done. He's accomplished more than anybody outside of the Elite Four and even some of the Elite Four. Does Jalen Hurts have something to prove? Only to people who are not rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's already gotten the job done. Everything else on top of this now is gravy. Which now brings me to the schedule. Because the schedule here is what everyone's talking about. The schedule release, right? Listen, we got the Cowboys, week 1 over here, Kansas City, the Rams. I mean, like, these are not necessarily the easiest games that we got going on over here. I get that. But you know what? This is the spoils of being the champ. You do have to get a primetime game against America's team. You got to get the featured game against the Kansas City Chiefs on Fox. Game of the week. You're going to get the Rams at home. You're going to get Tampa Bay on the road, which is going to be a tough game in December because it's usually hot, and that's a house of horrors for Philadelphia. The Broncos, I don't think have necessarily a shot here. You get prime time on, Amazon on Thursday Night Football with the New York Giants, who, again, division rival. Anything can happen. Minnesota, the Giants, once again. Listen, out of how many games here? 18, you got 1 primetime game. You got 2, you got 3, you got 4, 5 here, because it's going to be a Thanksgiving type of game. So 5, 6 over here, excuse me. Here, this game could possibly be flexed. So 7, game of the week, 8. And then this game could be a division title game, but nonetheless, this schedule just goes to show the National Football League wants the Philadelphia Eagles to be the face of the league. Them and the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are the 2 teams that they want to drive ratings here because they're polarizing. You talk about them. They're exciting. They're thrilling. They're captivating. All because of head coach and quarterback. The storylines around the team are pretty interesting. Can Jalen Hurts throw for 4,000? Can you rely on Jalen Hurts' arm to win you a Super Bowl and win you games consistently? Will Sirianni do something stupid on the sideline to mess something up? As talented as the team is, will they collapse under the pressure? Again, these are only questions that people outside of Philadelphia are asking about this team. Me, on the other hand, I don't believe Sirianni has anything left to prove. I don't think Jalen Hurts has anything left to prove either. I think both have established themselves as some of the top guys in their position. Jalen Hurts, to me, top 5 quarterback at number 5. Bar none, in my opinion. You could argue Stafford, because I do love Stafford's arm talent and his elite ability, but you know what? He's got maybe 1 or 2 more years left at best of being an elite quarterback here. Not as long as Jalen Hurts' shelf life. Jaden Daniels, let's see what he does in his sophomore year. CJ Stroud, we already saw what happened there. He took a little bit of a dip down after his sophomore season. See how he bounces back. Let's see what Jaden Daniels does now that there's film out there on him. Jordan Love, listen, you had a really great, phenomenal 8-game stretch a couple years ago. And you got this claim to fame because of your gunslinger mentality. But you know what? You are the quarterback for the Packers. You're a young team. I get it. But you know what? It's time to start winning some football games, some important games in the playoffs. It's your job. You got the big money. Go out there and earn it. I mean, I don't know. Dak Prescott, we're not even going to bother with that conversation in terms of Jalen Hurts, even though Dak is a good quarterback. Same with Brock Purdy. Good quarterback, just not what Jalen Hurts is at the moment because of what his resume says. So, no, he doesn't have anything left to prove here. The only thing that he has to prove is, can he just advance his game now? Can he develop his game more? Can he become a more polished passer? That's the only thing he has left to prove. And quite frankly, he's already at a high enough level where you could win the Super Bowl with him. So what really is there for this man to prove? What really is there for Nick Sirianni to go out there and prove? Other than just doing what they have done since they have first been together 4 years ago. Just go out there and win football games. Everything else will fall into place and settle itself.
Hey! Thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.